Good morning. Thank you so much for stepping into my queendom for this week's episode of Queening with the Empress. I am your host, Patience Pat Phiri. The issue of gender, the conversation, is a very complicated one. 25 years after Beijing conference. It's famous for some, it's infamous to others. It depends on which side of the fence you stand on. When feminism, equality, women's rights and women's issues are raised, many people have a habit of tuning off. And they have very colorful words to use for the feminist movement, which has been ongoing for hundreds of years. So I thought we need to talk about it. But also today's show was inspired by one of our cameramen who said a few weeks ago that feminism has become the new patriarchy, and that was very profound. And I thought, how about we talk about that with people that understand the issue of feminism, people that will also bring light to us and give us better understanding, because there's so many things that we think we know about the feminist movement, but people believe that what we think we know is exactly what it is. So I invited two amazing women to come and join me today in my queendom, and I have Skha Ngwenya, a sociologist and a women's rights defender, and I have Zoleka, who is a lawyer, a social justice activist. They're coming on, and we're going to talk about the whole movement. What is it? Who? What? How? Everything. All those things. So welcome to Queening with the Empress. Because are you the famous or are you the infamous ones?
Infamous ones.
You're the infamous ones, because there's always that.
Yeah.
Okay, so according to the dictionary, when I checked my dictionary, feminism is about equality.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right? And then when you ask people on the street about feminism, they say it's women wanting to be men. So I think then it moves from being equality. What is feminism according to each of you?
All right. For me, feminism has got nothing to do with challenging what a man is, or being angry at a man, or wanting to be a man, or anything to do with men. But it's a movement that seeks to address inequalities that come with patriarchy. And patriarchy is a system that is comfortable in men dominating women, and it's hidden in a setup called family. So for us to be able to understand what feminism is, we need to understand what patriarchy is. The feminists are angry at patriarchy as a system, not at men.
Okay.
So that's where the problem is.
No.
We love men. And we have so many feminists that are married. So if it was the case, then that was never going to happen. So for me, feminism is a movement, or it's a group of women and men who are angry at the patriarchy. And to say feminists hate men is ill, because patriarchy also puts men at a disadvantage, because men are being taught to take care of women. You have to fend for your family. You have to be a breadwinner. But feminists are saying, no, look, we can do this thing equal. If you are buying bread, I can buy milli meal. So that's what feminism is about. Exactly. Yeah. So that's what it's about.
Okay. To you, Zoleka, what does feminism mean?
I feel like the dictionary definition is a bit shallow, because as much as it is equality of the sexes, I feel like there's also the equity aspect to feminism, in the sense that equality means sameness, but then equity means fairness. And I think that's what feminism is trying to achieve, basically to uproot the structure that has been oppressing both women and men for centuries. So to me, feminism is the structural change that I'm talking about. I'll elaborate later. But then it's also the way that patriarchy has pervaded all aspects of life, culture, language, politics. Like in culture, you see like cultural practices like maybe female genital mutilation or child marriage and whatnot. politically, you see female politicians getting a lot of abuse on social media and whatnot, and not being given a chance. Like during, like for example, there was a time when Robert Mugabe said that Joyce Mjuru will never be president because she's a woman, and that's very problematic. And then in the economic aspect, it's issues like the gender wage gap. In Zim, women earn 84% of a man's salary for doing the same job, and that's a problem. And so feminism is seeking to like redress all these things. And there's also the intersectional aspect to it, in the sense that, you know what, feminism is equality of the sexes, but then within the context of race, of class, of sexual orientation, religion, and many other things. And you find that patriarchy can intersect with other systems of oppression to create unique forms of oppression to certain women that have like, that belong to like different groups, like for example with Black women. So yeah, that's what feminism is to me.
Okay. Are there different kinds of feminism? I know me now, after when I became woke and I started reading, I discovered that I would fall under African feminists. But are there different types of feminism, or is feminism the same thing right across the board?
There are different types of feminism. And before we even go there, there's a problem when we decide to treat women as a homogeneous group. Women are so different. So when we're talking about African feminism, what are we really talking about? Which African women? Which African feminists? Because a feminist in Bulawayo is different from a feminist in Gwanda. So there are different kinds of feminists who address different things because our communities are not the same. There are white women. I believe they are also facing challenges that we are facing, though in a different platform, a different level. So we can trace back to how it started. So it started as the radical feminists, those ones who believe that we need to destroy our society and start from scratch because of the disadvantages that women were facing at the time. The wages, they would put more work, but they didn't get enough or equal to what men were getting. So they were angry at the system that was there. And then they decided, no, let's start all over again. This society is not fair to us. And then the liberal feminists will then believe that, no, we need to, those who can, should then join even in decision making, economics and so on. Let's learn, let's do things so that we are equal to them. And then the African feminists will then say that we are blacks. So as much as you guys are complaining that you are not getting enough wages, it's even deeper for us because we are blacks and we are women. So I have to fight a battle of being a woman as much as I have to fight the battle of being what? Of being black. So there are so many strands of feminists who address different things. And even what I believe right now as a feminist is not what she believes in, because my battles are different from hers. So the grand theories do not apply to the modern day feminists.
So
because our stories are different.
It's not a one-size-fits-all.
It's not a one-size-fits-all. We are so different.
We'll take a short break and we'll be back still discussing feminism. To Queening with the Empress, with me still hosting you, Patience Phiri, and today we're talking about the feminist movement. I have with me in my queendom Zoleka Mazibuko, and we were talking about the different types of feminism that are available. And they did say that feminism is not a one-size-fits-all. It is a movement that is customized to what your living situation is. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Perfect. What does feminism look like? I don't know if that makes sense, but what does feminism look like? Because when people talk about feminism, it's angry people. And I think during the break, you said something about how it's called the angry brigade. people think feminists are angry women that hate men. Some will say they're lesbians that wear iskochi. They have I think the worst, they're hard women, they're difficult women, they're all these things that will not make it look pretty. So what does feminism look like, if that is even a question? Zoleka?
Okay. Feminism looks like I spoke about equity. Let me maybe talk about affirmative action. So you have some affirmative action initiatives that look like it's favoritism for women, but then that's the gender equity aspect of feminism coming in the sense that women have been historically disadvantaged and denied opportunities and are still currently like both socially and economically disadvantaged to men. And so feminism looks like balancing those scales, because to me it's like when you've got two buildings, one is tall and the other is short, and you want to make them the same height, you increase the height of the shorter building. That looks like it. The thing is, equity looks like discrimination, it looks like unfairness, but it's actually fair, and it's what we term positive discrimination, whereby it's discrimination that is serving a purpose to like bring about justice in society. So that's one of the ways that feminism can look like. But then feminism also looks like more women being in positions of leadership and decision making, because we make up 50% of the population, and so it only makes sense that that we also like exactly we are represented politically and all those other things, because at the end of the day Zimbabwe runs like only men are in this country, but then there are also women, and you hardly see women in politics, and when you do they get bashed a lot on social media. Like people always harass Fadzai Mahere and whatnot. When she even mentions the word gender, they start talking about, like, it's just really messy. So I feel like feminism looks like that. Women being more visible in all aspects of society. Women being more visible in the occupational world. Women, we want to see female judges, because you have a lot of cases that have got unfair verdicts because it's men who are judging issues that don't even affect them. And then you don't have and people call that impartiality. But then there's a difference between impartiality and just being humane. And so you acknowledging the fact that something is unfair is not necessarily being biased, right? It's like, okay, yeah. So in essence, it's just that representation, more than just more than just descriptive representation, as in just women being in leadership positions and whatnot, but then also representation of our issues, like that are specific to women in certain areas, and
Okay. And what does feminism look like to you?
For me, feminism has to look like a woman who's woke. Knowing who you are and what you can do, not because someone says you can or can't do it, but having the ability to choose what you want, where you want to go, and what to do or to your body. Because sometimes you hear, like for example, last week I read something on Facebook where someone posted a woman with tattoos, and then he says, would you allow your wife to do this? I'm like,
wow.
Allow body, who's what exactly are you talking about? So a feminism, to me, it has to be that woman who decides to do tattoos and who decides to go out for a cup of coffee and do it. That's what it's about. Being aware of yourself, the things that you like, being able to make choices for yourself. That's what feminism should look like.
So could we say maybe is that why it's hated? Because it's not a very favorable movement, if we ask around. Do you think because of that freedom that you talk about for women, when we've lived for so long with women set in little boxes where they're supposed to look pretty, cook, have children, do the normal things, is that why maybe?
I think to a greater extent that's why it's hated, because you get married. Like, I hate lobola, by the way, because when someone pays lobola for you, they think like the traditional men. And I always say, if you date someone and they say I'm a traditional man, run away. Because a traditional man is that kind of a guy who pays lobola for you. And you make sure that he controls even the air that you breathe. You can't do anything. You have to cook. You have to take care of the kids. You have to do homework and everything. Whilst you're sitting there watching TV. That's a typical traditional man. And as a feminist, when you marry that kind of a man, it's not going to
be an uphill battle.
Because you have a life. You have to choose you. Look, our parents were very unhappy for a very long time. Until they died, some of them. They lived all their lives impressing men of the house. If not the father, then it's the husband. So the feminism... So as feminists, you then have to choose you. If you want to sleep after work, just go home and sleep. Without anyone questioning why you are sleeping, why you are tired. You can't be tired. So those kind of expectations are a problem. And that's what men hate about that word feminism.
But there are women that also don't take kindly. I remember we shared a video between the two of us. There's a time you shared, I think it was a Facebook video, where they were talking about feminism. And there were women that were there that were saying, no. Okay. No. How does that work? Because you would assume that because it's a movement that's pushing for women to rise up and take charge, then there are women that are there and they're saying, aunties.
It's internalized misogyny.
Okay.
Basically, as I said, patriarchy has pervaded all aspects of life to the point that, you know, I'm a feminist today, but then as I grew up, I had to unlearn all of the things that were instilled into me by, like, growing up in a traditional society. And so those women who are against feminism, it's because that's how they were brought up. Misogyny has been shaping us from birth. And so, like, when a woman is saying that it's okay for maybe a man to hit his wife because she must respect him, it's not, you know, people treat those statements and those beliefs like they exist in a vacuum, but then they exist in this environment that is, like, indoctrinating men and women to think like that. And so I feel like those women who are against feminism, I like calling them handmaidens of patriarchy, because, like, it's really sad when I see it, because I'm thinking, you know what, you went to school because of feminists, you are able to work because of feminists, you can own property because of feminists, you can get your husband arrested for marital rape because of feminists. All these privileges that you have now are the result of feminists. But then those women who are so against it act like the rights just fell from the sky. And yeah, exactly. So I think one of the important things as men and women is to really question and critique these values that are instilled in us, and just always have an open mind that is analytical and not just accept things as face value or as culture because really that's culture or the way they are.
Okay. And then we spoke briefly about lobola. So when it comes to culture and religion, these two always somehow have their own ideas. So culture, religion versus feminism. How does that? Because ngahambe esontweni bazathi mina kimi wisili submit, your husband is the head, what all those things I'll be told. And then ngithi ngifika uSkhayethe mfundisa ngale ethi, you know what, you're your own person, do this, you are equal, you are this, you are that, you are capable, you are what. How do we balance that?